today. Get ready. This is not the smartest guys in the room. We got a wound up Tom. He is full of piss and vinegar today. So Tom, let's just get right into it, man. I'm gonna ping some people here, but I want to know. Tell me about this. A guy put a post out that Tom didn't like. He's not going to identify him, but what do you got, Tom?
Hang on one second. I got some weird settings happening for some reason here, and I don't think the audio is getting through on the live stream. Go ahead and talk for me for a second. I'm just trying to
do your thing. Okay, so I'll what's up, Brian? We got Tom shot out of the cannon today, but he's fixing some live stream stuff. Somebody posted something that you didn't have to give value. I wanted to talk about apps people are sleeping on, business practices people are sleeping on, whether that means networking or using Facebook or asking for the close or Facebook groups. What is the thing that you use that you're saying other people just don't get? They're missing the boat. Like I talk about Amazon affiliates and associates all the time. It's free money. You're posting people's stuff already. Why aren't you posting their links? You want to help them anyway. It seems basic that you would post these links. Carrie, what do you got? What say you this morning?
Hi, guys. So Tom is wound up. This should be fun.
Yeah, he was really on fire. So what do you think? There's something you're doing in your business that got you to the point you're at, and you tell people about it, and they're just like, no, I wouldn't do that. Publisher, I'll tell people 50 different ways to sell books. Like, okay, meaning pre-order letter, meaning you could direct message, meaning you could follow up on your pre-order letter. You could do announcements. You could do a book launch party. And then people are like, nope, I'm not going to do that. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Nope, I'm not going to post about it. Nope, I'm not going to direct message people. Well, each time you don't do these things, you can still have success other ways, but each time you don't do one of those things, well, you're leading yourself to a harder journey. So, Carrie, is there anything you're doing that could help us have an easier
Coming out in early 2024, so I'm going to be doing it has been really hard to do all of it.
You've got a lot going on, and we laugh and joke about it. But is there ever a point where it's too much, Carrie, and you should say, well, to focus on your business, complaining about nothing, or is it reality? And maybe we should back down and not be on Instagram or not be going somewhere, or not be volunteering. Tom, you laugh. To wait, not the big finger. So, okay, we'll just keep talking.
I don't know.
Okay, Julie, is there something you're doing that other people are, like I know you're big on meetups, I know you're big on taking people to where things that you have ownership of, not living on social media. You still use social media, but you're not dependent on it. So are there things that you're doing? No, people just are sleeping on. What do you got, George?
Hello, Tom and Dom, Carrie, Brian, John, and George. because we all know no like and trust, no like and trust. So it is, to me, it's always been about creating a community on different platforms. Having the social media is just kind of the, the icing on the cake, razzle dazzle, if you will, and then doing the real things to create relationships.
What is happening?
What it was about. How about building community? How about giving back? How about being a good person? How about making somebody smile? So many people want to take. So Johnny, how do you build community? What's some things so we're talking things that are working for you. Julie says building community, things that aren't working for you. Go on, Johnny. What do you got, my friend? Creative Con present, might I say.
Excited about it. So you know what is for plus years I've been searching for quote my tribe unquote. I build communities that I'm really not a part of. And what I mean by that is I'm really good at connecting other people and connecting their talents and making introductions and creating opportunities for them to meet and work together. And then they kind of go. Performer, entertainer, and I create opportunities for other people to meet, network, and be successful apart from me. In that regards, I'm kind of like the shaman of a tribe. Part of the tribe, but never really. I'm a member of the tribe, but not really part of the tribe.
So Johnny, does there have to be do you need to be a leader of the tribe? Can you just be in the tribe? What is that wrong? Is that wrong? What's wrong with that?
No. That's absolutely perfectly fine. But I don't even. Once the connections are made, I don't get invited back to the tribe. That's the funny part.
Interesting. I used to work with a guy in sales, and I just want to. He was.
Wait, what does that mean? You're not invited back to the tribe, Johnny? I'm worried about that.
Well, so okay, here's a good example. So I had a vocal music group that I put together when I moved to Nashville, and we were having a lot of success. But there were 2 or 3 people in the group that had just clicked and become really good friends, and they started working on a side project, and then they left to go do their own project, and they became very successful, and I haven't heard from them again since then. And that kind of thing just happens to me over and over and over again, and it's cool because I'm meeting my goals, but it's mostly on my own.
Interesting, Johnny. I wanted to say just so I've worked with and I was in sales for 20 some years, still consider myself in sales in a way. But so there were people out there that were relationship sellers where they could sell like every person that they knew from their community. Well, they bowled with this guy, they played softball with this guy. I'm speaking of a friend of mine that was in radio advertising, and then we did Yellow Page together. He could sell them because he played radio with them, or because he played baseball with them, because he was on the bowling team, because his dad knew him. Great relationship seller. Then I moved on to an insurance company at one point where they hung out with the Hineses and the Mellons, and they played with a different at the clubs and things like that. They played with these high-end people, and they were able to sell them. But the best salesman I ever worked with, a guy named, I'll give him credit here because he's not listening, but his name was Paul King. And he wasn't born into wealth or anything like that. What he did, Johnny, he was always able to keep himself in the conversation. So if he connected, like he had a company one time that had some kind of sorter. They sorted coal. So then he hooked them up with the coal company. Now, my friends sold insurance. So once he hooked the people that sorted coal up with the coal company, they always kept him in the deal. He just had a way of always being there. Then all of a sudden I'd talk to him on the phone. I'd be like, hey, Paul, where you at today? He'd be like, oh, we're up on Fifth Avenue in New York. We're having a call with investors. And then they kept him in the deal. So it was the opposite. He had figured out a way to always be part of the conversation and never go. And so I don't know why or how, but they always kept him as part of it. It was like a loyalty towards him and everything he did. And then he was able to grow his sales business along the way. And then he sold out to another insurance company and made a boatload of money on that too. Okay, Tom's back and he's full of piss and vinegar. So Tom, where the hell you been? What do you got going on? Why are you so cranky today? Give us a list.
All right. So I was cranky at technology. For some reason, things were not playing nice with me this morning. I could not had a crazy echo going on with the Clubhouse audio. And I was frustrated because it seems like every time I open Club Deck and Restream, settings are different than the last time I used it. And so I have to go through and troubleshoot the settings every single time. And it's just frustrating because it's like, why are the settings not being held over, in the memory cache from like one use to the next? It's just a really annoying, frustrating thing. And so, yeah, so that was what was bugging me a couple of moments ago, but we're good. We've got audio on the live stream now. You guys can hear me on Clubhouse. The internet can hear all of you. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and the website formerly known as Twitter and Twitch. So all of that is now functional and working. So that's a good thing. So that makes me happy. The thing I was telling you about right before we started the live stream today, right before we opened up the room and started the show, was a post I saw that like really kind of pissed me off because I think it embodies many of the things that I believe are wrong with the way a lot of businesses conduct themselves and the way a lot of entrepreneurs and people starting out in business are taught to conduct themselves. And so I'm not going to name names or anything, but I'm just going to read this post that I saw on social media. It's a simple text post. And I'm just going to talk about it for just a second. But the post is, and I quote, "The most simp thing you can do as a marketer is, in quotes, give value, end quotes, so you can, quote, earn the right, end quotes, to make paid offers." Right? So essentially what this post is saying is that you're an idiot if you think it's a good idea to give value, to develop a relationship with the people who you want to serve through your business so that you can then take them down the path of making a sale, right? And what's wrong with this, just right off the bat, right off the top, from my perspective, what's wrong with this is that it ignores the fact that all businesses are service businesses. Every single business, regardless of what you make or sell or the services you provide, you all have customers and clients, right? You all have people you serve through your business. Every business is a service business. And it ignores that the people you serve through your business are people, right? They're not money trees you're trying to shake dollars out of, right? They're not ATMs you're trying to guess a PIN code on, right? It's not a nameless, faceless, bag of cash, right? That you're just trying to get your hand into. It's a person on the other end of that conversation, on the other end of that relationship. And it ignores that the people you serve through your business actually should matter to you and should matter to your business and should be treated like human beings, right? And not like somebody with money that your whole mission is to separate them from. And it frustrates me because this person has a pretty decent following, right? Like they have a bunch of people that subscribe to their philosophies and just sort of believe the things that they say. And it frustrates me because they're just leading them down a very incorrect path. Essentially, the only person that this kind of post benefits is the person making the post, right? It is very selfish. It is self-serving. And essentially all he's doing is saying, like the subtext of this to me, the way I read it is, all I care about is getting your money in my pocket, period, end of story. I don't care about you. I don't care about what you need. I don't care about who you are as a human being. I don't care to develop a relationship with you. None of that matters to me. Nothing about you matters to me. All I care about is getting your money. You are a hurdle, a roadblock in my path to getting that cash, and I want you out of the way. Right? And it's like everything that's wrong with the way businesses do business, and it's everything that's wrong with the way people are taught to do business. And I did not engage with the post, despite the fact that I was really frustrated by it. And I wanted to. I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to feed into it because I'm not going to get into a debate on social media that there can be no winner for. But I wanted to talk about it because it had really been bothering me for the last 24 hours or so. And so I wanted to kind of get that off my chest. So thank you for being my group therapy session for this morning. I appreciate you guys listening to me. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that idea that the most simp thing you can do as a marketer is give value so you can earn the right to make paid offers. What do you guys think about that? Don't all jump at once.
Well, here we go.
Oh, now everybody goes at once. I love it.
Johnny, then Julie, go on, and then Brian.
Yeah, so I think that post is horrible. It's totally wrong. And my philosophy is always be giving. And I don't care if I get anything in return or not. If I have something or that will benefit someone, I'm going to share it, regardless of whether it generates income or revenue, or even if it builds a relationship. Always be giving. That's my philosophy.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, my whole thing with my legendeering strategy and the way I approach business is 100% to lead with value, right? Like that is sort of the underlying principle to everything that I do. Is I always try to give more value than I take. And the thing that people forget is that giving is actually good for you too, right? It doesn't just benefit other people. It's actually good for you to give. It helps you too. So yeah, 100% agree. Johnny, Julie, what did you think? And then we'll go to Brian after you.
Hey, can I pause on this? Give, or just I'm thinking of this ABC always be closing. It should be ABG always be given. But then I wonder, and I'm gonna make you guys mad, and I don't even want to do it, but a lot of times a company operates at a loss for a long, long time. And I've been thinking about Amazon, and I know I say it as soon as I compare Amazon and giving. I know you're going to butcher me, but in a way, the company was able to give value or whatever for all these years without making money. At first it wasn't making money. Now, granted, this was a major ploy to suck all your money out later on, but they were giving value before taking from you. So just a thought. Anyway, go on, Julie. Go on. Then we're going to Brian, John, and Jason. Go on, Julie.
I just wanted to say, okay, Tom, take a deep breath, breathe. I totally believe the truth is, yes, giving value, giving of yourself. But I'm going to say, on the other hand, if you're not receiving value, if you're not getting paid, this is a slippery slope that I've been on, and hence my nickname, Free Ride Julie, by the way. You can't do the work that you want to do. So there is that balance in terms of like knowing your value and asking to be compensated monetarily. And then I believe I go over and beyond, in terms of value that way as well. So I think people get confused that you you're it's wrong to ask to get paid, but there is a way to do it, and it leads by value. And then giving value, people don't put out effort if they're not invested in it. And I've seen that a million times. So I hope I'm not watching you live. I hope Tom's not rolling his eyes at me, falling asleep right now. But that's what I'm going to say, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no, I'm not rolling my eyes at all, Julie. I totally agree with you. I think it's important that you draw lines and create boundaries, right? And when I'm talking about giving value, I'm not talking about working for free, right? What I'm talking about is, and this is specifically in the context of this post, talking about from a marketing standpoint, right? You should always lead with value for your community that you want to serve, right? You should always deliver value first in order to engender trust and begin the process of developing a relationship with that community, so that down the line, you develop a mutually beneficial relationship where you provide value to them, they support your business, you provide services or goods to them in return for them supporting your business. They continue to support your business. And you grow together, right? It becomes you develop a good, mutually beneficial, long-term, sustainable relationship that way. You don't develop a good, long-term, sustainable relationship by tricking people into buying you drinks, right? And that's what this guy is essentially advocating for. I'm sure all of us have had that person in a sort of social group that we've been a part of at some point, who was the one who always kind of somehow got away without paying, right? Without covering their part of the check, whether it was like for dinner or for a group activity or for going out for drinks or whatever the case may be, right? We've all been in a social situation where it was that one person that was always kind of figuring out a way to not chip in. Right. And that's essentially what he's advocating. Is he's saying, be the person that takes and never gives back. Right. Be the person.
Those kind of people, by the way,
Yeah.
Tom. So I agree.
Yeah, they're slimy. That's slimy.
Exactly. Thanks. Go ahead, Brian. What do you think?
Yeah, totally dark, selfish, and slimy. So yeah, I mean, there is some level of reciprocation that needs to come back when you provide value. I mean, for me personally, I provided value for years on my podcast, and going to the first conversation that we were having here, I've been running my podcast for like 18 years and have developed
Holy cow, dude.
18 years. I mean, I met Adam Curry, and I have like a signed microphone from him. I actually met him in person at a pod camp.
He's like the first podcaster ever, by the way.
Yeah, I feel like so old, but I can't get away from this podcast because it just sucks me in every time. And my community is what keeps sucking me back in. So these relationships are huge. And you have the people who just listen and don't give back. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, as a business owner, I totally agree with, if you're providing value, that's the hook in marketing today. You can't come in with a sales pitch. You can't come in with that glimmering teeth and, that smiley sales pitch. You have to come in with a hook, which is you providing value. And at some point, you need your customers or your listeners or your viewers, whoever they are, to kind of reciprocate. But the expectation for me is not there for you to do that. I'm here to provide value. I'm here to build my brand. But when the expectation comes in like, hey, I'm just going to shut off my value flow, my flow of value to you because you're not paying me, that's just, that's kind of slimy and dark when that expectation comes there. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Brian, and 18 years on your podcast. Oh my God, like that's insane. First of all, congratulations for sticking with it, because I think like the majority of podcasts like don't even get past like episode. What is it? It's somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like episode 10 or episode 20 or something like that. Like 80% or 75% of podcasts don't even get
Episode 6.
Yeah. So it's like the vast majority of podcasts don't even get past episode 6. So the consistency of doing it for 18 years is impressive. And throw a link to it in the chat for sure, so people can make sure to subscribe and check it out. But yeah, I totally agree. I think you have to, like I said, you have to draw a line, you have to delineate, you have to value your own work, right? But what I say to people all the time, and here's where I draw the line, right? Like this is how I draw the line. If the value I'm providing, if the conversations I'm having, if the effort that is going into the relationship is information that is sort of readily available, right? To generalized information that's readily available, i.e., if somebody wants to have a conversation with me and ask me some questions about video content creation, or technical production questions, or even strategy questions, if they're asking me, for generalized, readily available information that they could probably find themselves if they spend a few hours on Google, but it's easier and faster to just ask me and have a 10-minute conversation, I'm happy to have those conversations all day long. The line where I kind of pump the brakes and I say, here's where we have to enter a more formal relationship, is when you're asking me to use my expertise and my experience to apply generalized information to your specific use case and help you come up with a solution to your problem. That's when I draw the line and I say, okay, well, now the relationship is changing, right? And we need to formalize it, because I need to be compensated for that, because you're asking me to use my unique skill set and expertise to benefit you, right? So you're asking me to provide a service that benefits your business, and I should be compensated for that, right? And that's where I draw the line. It's very straightforward to me. But up until you cross that line, like whenever it's general information, like we do all the time in here, right? In this room, we all do this in this space, right? Not just me, not just Dom, but everybody in here and everybody that comes into this room does this, right? Give away generalized, information and knowledge to everybody listening, right? Because we all believe that that's a valuable thing to do, and that we should share our knowledge and our experience and our information with people, right? That we should lead with value. But yeah, I just draw the line when you're asking me to use my expertise to solve your problem for your business. That's a formal relationship we need to enter into. That's where I need to be compensated. But yeah, that's where I draw the line. It's to me, it's very straightforward. But what do you think, Dom?
I told everybody. So we had some live stream problems. We got set up, but I told you Tom was focused, shot out of a cannon today. So you each better come correct if you're going to.
Let's rile Tom up today.
Yeah, that's right. So
I used to in college, my roommates used to intentionally bring up things that they knew annoyed me, bring up topics in conversation that they knew annoyed me, just to get me to rant about them, because they found my rants so entertaining.
I see why they did that, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why don't you train, if you train your body so hard the way that you do, and you're exceptionally person who's done, Ironmans and things, then why aren't you training your triggers in your mind to not to go
That's
against
boring,
the weakness?
72. Like
I
that.
can give a crap
boring.
if it's
Okay.
boring.
No, that's boring.
I'm an anti-hero. I'm the antagonist. I'm a thought provoker. And you know what? I'm not a snowflake, and I don't think Tom is either.
Yeah,
I think Tom's an incredibly strong guy. So
all right.
Work on your mental toughness. Yeah.
He's tough as hell. Come on, let's go to John Jay, building community. Where you weigh in on all this, John Jay? Is there something you're doing that everybody else is sleeping on as well? That whether it's building community, whether it's news break, whether it's just having a podcast. Go on, man.
Well, the three things, and I say this all the time, it is much easier to build a Facebook community than it is to build podcast listeners. It's much cheaper and it can be monetized and it can be part of your advertising platform. Whether it be a podcast, a radio show, a book, consulting services, coaching services, keynote speaking, whatever it is, you have to bear in mind the very first thing out of your mouth, when I say out of your mouth, out of keyboard or whatever it might be, needs to be what's in it for the consumer. Who are you looking for? And address their needs, their concerns. If you don't do that, and here's a perfect example. When I tell people about social media, use a 3 or 4-to-1 ratio. 3 or 4 posts about what's in it for them, engagement for them, build the community you want. Then that one post is going to be about something you offer. If it's all about you, guess what it's not about? It's not about them anymore. And they're not going to choose to hang around you. So I give a lot of information, a lot of actionable information. Whether people choose to use it or not, it's up to them. And those who don't, I don't even argue with them anymore. Look, you go do what you do. Maybe you're going to have great success. I wish you success. If you do, I want to hear about it. If you don't, that's cool too. But what I don't do is I don't argue with people. Here's the thing. For many years, I gave people power over me by distracting me and moving me to another point where I engaged with content that they want to engage with. That got me nowhere. So it got me on their plane. So just for example, social media. Tom made a great point. He didn't comment. I never, ever, ever comment to someone who's got something negative to say because number one, that kind of engagement doesn't really build my audience. Number two, people think it does, but it doesn't. Number two, there's an old saying by, I think it's Mark Twain, never argue with an idiot. They'll just drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. Then I add in there in public on social media. And you just gave all your power away. So don't do it. Thanks.
Can I say something about that really quickly?
Go for it, Julie. What do you got?
Well, I mean, I love what John says, and I totally agree with him. But I have a client who's rather high profile, and anytime there is controversy or she engages in the controversy, like it creates like her community builds, and it's so fascinating to watch. And it's not like she does it to be controversial. She's kind of controversial, a little bit controversial as it is, but it's just, and then she gains like ardent followers, a community, supporters, because she does speak her truth. But I'm not kidding. When there's something controversial about her, and she's not afraid of it, it builds her community.
Yeah,
Which,
I never
tell me
once
about that.
shy away from controversy.
Oh,
Never
okay,
once.
okay.
So I don't know where that came from. Look, I go for a specific audience. I know who I'm looking for. And everything I do is about that. The people who, and I'll give you an example. I get them all the time. ACAB, all cops are bastards, or FTP, or whatever it might be. I don't argue with them at all. They're not the audience I want. And guess what? Their posts are hidden anyway because I've got in moderation assist that they don't show up. So they're being very forceful. They're using profanity or they put links to whatever they're offering and trying to spam people. Then I just hide it. So I don't respond to them at all. I'm a very, very vocal about what I do post for and the audience of who I'm looking for and a community I'm trying to build. And I don't shy away from that one bit.
It's interesting that, John, because I actually literally went through this thought process when I decided not to post or comment on this post. And the thought process I went through was, one, I'm not gonna convince him he's wrong, right? This is, if you look at this person's posting, record, right? All of their posts are kind of in this vein, right? Like there's another post they did the same day that says, "Good morning to everybody except business owners who get triggered by other people trying to sell them stuff," right? So like this is their thing, right? They try to be controversial and provocative to basically pick fights and get people to engage with them by doing that, right? So I'm not going to convince them to change their ways. I'm not going to change their mind or anybody's mind who really subscribes to what they believe in. And at the end of the day, if this is what he believes and what his community believes, what the people who follow him believe, none of them are people that I want to work with anyway, right? Even if I convinced some of them to maybe give my way a try, right? Like they would be the worst clients that I have, right? And I don't want that. I want people who align with me on my values, on the way I think business should be done, on the way I think businesses should conduct themselves. I want people who share my values to work with me, right? And I want to work with them and help them. I don't want to try to convince or trick people or convince people that they're doing it the wrong way. It's a battle that I don't want to fight, and I don't think is ultimately beneficial for me to fight, right? So I agree. I think it's a tough thing to try to figure out, or try to not to engage with that stuff sometimes. But I think it's absolutely the right choice in this case. And sometimes controversy works, right? Sometimes it's a matter of standing up for what you believe in. And that's a good thing. And I think that can definitely be beneficial. As Brian said in the chat, controversy marketing has its pros and cons. Absolutely does. But this guy is clearly somebody who just tries to stir the pot for the sake of stirring the pot. And again, it's obviously to benefit himself and not to really help anybody else. So I'm just not going to engage with it. I'm not going to feed that beast.
Yeah. So Tom, I can see the steam coming out of your ears on the video feed. It's only marketing, man. It's only marketing, digital marketing. It's a tactic. It's a tool. I'm neck deep in marketing. That's my full-time job. And every once in a while, we'll pull the little rabbit out of the hat. Controversial marketing works. So don't let it bug you. It's probably all that he's doing. But if he's not doing it intentionally, if he's not purposely doing controversial marketing, which can be very effective and impactful, if he's just being a jerk, that's another thing.
But also, like, Tom's been thinking about this for a long time, so it's worked in a way, if you will.
Yeah, it's had its effect, obviously.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I would agree. I've been thinking about it since yesterday when I saw the post, right? And then it popped back into my head this morning when I was out on my run. So it's not like I've been stewing on this nonstop for the last 24 hours. Thankfully, I have better things to do with my time than just sit around and be mad about a Facebook post. I wanted to use it as an example of something that I see often. And that is this idea that really your role in business is to extract as much money as you can as quickly as possible from people for the sole benefit of the business, and either returning value to yourself as the owner or to your investors, right? Like, and that there is no other purpose to your business. That basically, like, it diminishes whatever you do down to essentially a trick to get money out of someone's pockets, right? If it's a good or a service or whatever the case may be, essentially all you're doing is trying to trick people out of, separate people from their cash. And I just think it's a bad place we've gotten to in business, and I want to change it. And that's it, because this speaks to my sort of broader mission that I've talked about in here before, that I want to humanize the world of business through better communication, right? I think this guy's 100% doing it on purpose. And I think, he's a jerk for doing it. But I'm not going to change his mind. But maybe some people will hear this discussion, and, it'll impact the decisions they make in the future about how they decide to communicate with their organizations and lead their organization. So hopefully it will have a positive impact. I think, so just so you guys know, Dom had to, unfortunately, had a work emergency pop up So he had to jump off and go take a phone call. So I'm flying solo right now, and I'm going to do my best to keep things moving along. But yeah, I think we were to Jason. So Jason, feel free, try to get through my thick skin if you want. I'm not going to shy away from it, but otherwise,
I don't feel like playing with yogurt. I don't feel like playing with yogurt. Sorry, I'm not into mush. Not into. It's too early in the morning. Sorry, it's too easy. If you want to get to someone, just listen to him for about 10 minutes. And you can probe him.
He's calling me soft. He's calling me soft.
I'm calling him a soft. He's training right now.
I'm eating some banana bread right now, though. I'm not eating yogurt.
There you go. See, proving my point. I'm kind of trying to figure out where in the hell are we at resetting the whole conversation. I hear you talking about somebody, but I don't know exactly what direction you're going with and what's the reference. So help me out a little bit in restarting what the original conversation, because it's gone into 5 different directions. And I'm trying to okay, what is the original point of origin of what we're actually talking about right now? Because I'm not with it right now. I'm hearing conversation, but it's not making sense.
Well, so the original, happy to do that, Jason. So I'll just reset real quick. So this is not the smartest guys in the room. For anybody who is just joining us, John, thanks for stopping by. I know he had to run, but for anybody who's just joining us, we talk about all kinds of things in here. Everything from podcasting and publishing to social media, marketing, content creation, creative work, so on and so forth. And the way this conversation started, Jason, was when Dom and I hopped on before we started the live stream this morning. He was asking me what I had going on, and I brought up this post on social media that I'd seen, and I'll read the post to you again. Or I'll read the post again for those that missed it the first time. The post was, and I quote, "The most simp thing you can do as a marketer is give value so you can earn the right to make paid offers." And there was a crying, laughing emoji face at the end of it. And I just thought it was indicative of kind of a lot of the things that I think are wrong with the way business owners and entrepreneurs conduct themselves, and the way business owners and entrepreneurs are taught to do business, right? And the thing that I think is wrong is people are essentially taught that your role in business is to just try to get as much, that it's a cash grab, right? That your job is to try to get as much cash as you can from as many people as you can as quickly as possible. And it's a short-term, short-sighted, poor strategy overall, I believe. And so yeah, that was kind of how the subject came up.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You know what I really think about all that is, there's so many provocateurs and provocators who say these analogies that seem to touch your senses, your triggers, like get you to respond, because the more that you listen, the more that you click into what they're promoting. So in a way, he's kind of right, but the more you pay attention, but that good long-term residual business is not done that way. It's not. And to your point, if you look at how you want business to go forward with yourself, do you want a one-time point of sale, POS? If you want that one-time point of sale, okay, great. But if you want a point of interest that keeps providing the extenuating sale and exchange, that's what it is. It's an exchange. They provide the money or whatever counter service, counterbalance. You get something, they get something, to literally just say that you're going to, you do this and this is how people are ripped off. That's like, great. Thanks for letting me know who you are, and that's how I can really choose on which the way I conduct my business with you. And to go back to another point, people are constant provocateurs. They provoke your attention. Most of the media today in sales, in marketing, is to provoke a further curiosity, a click, a watch, a comment, a like, right? That's the modern world we live in. That's what we've evoked to becoming. And can we pull it back and say, well, where is the real value? Well, that takes upon asking yourself, do I need it or do I want it? If I need it, okay, I'll keep going with it. And then constantly evaluating that yes. And then when you have to come to a no, that's the decision. So, and what I'm really want to wrap up in saying is like, be careful of the provocateurs because they're there to collect your rent money. That means you paying attention to them for how long and for what their interests are. How much is your interest integrated with theirs? And that's where I'm going to stop.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, and I think in very simple terms, what I think people like this guy that I was talking about are doing, and what you're talking about more broadly in what we see in media is really just playing to negativity bias, right? You hear about clickbait, and really what clickbait is negativity bias. It's playing towards negativity bias, and from an evolutionary perspective, negativity bias makes a lot of sense, right? Like we tend to pay attention to things that seem dangerous, right? And the reason we tend to pay attention to things that seem dangerous is if you ignore things that seem dangerous, sometimes they're really dangerous and you die, right? So it's
isn't it kind of what John was saying though? He's like, look, I stay within my lane, but I'm aware of the toxicity, or I'm aware of what goes on. But if I give no comment, you can speculate all you want. And you can make up things extenuating on that. I mean, wouldn't you also agree with that? I mean, that's something that I'm thinking about right now in this conversation. Like, what's grabbing the most of our attention? That guy that making that post, or what he's actually saying? Are we providing any truth to what he's saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I I get what you're saying. I think, first of all, by not engaging directly with his post on social media, I believe that I'm essentially giving him no quarter, right? Like I am not helping him or aiding him in any way because first of all, I haven't named him. You guys don't know exactly who I'm talking about, right? So there's that, but also I didn't engage with the post. And the reason I chose not to engage with the post was I did not want to feed the beast. It's clear to me in looking at this person's posting history that this is what they do, right? As you said, they're a provocateur, right? Their whole mission is to stir the pot, get people to engage that negativity bias, and then push people into a sales funnel, right? Like, who's this guy saying this crazy, outlandish, provocative thing? Oh, he sells this. Oh, and then you get shoved into his funnel and some people end up clicking through and buying, right? And that's the numbers game that he's playing, and he's playing to negativity bias to get that engagement from people. So I don't feel like I've given him any quarter, and I don't feel like we like talking about it in a removed context like we are right now. I don't think actually helps him at all, or helps people like him at all.
I think that's smart on your play. Yeah, I think that's smart on your play, because if you can't tell us who, we can't investigate. We can only speculate according to what you provide. So it brings the attention back to you. You may not be necessarily the intentional provocateur, but you're the intentional person to making a social impact of what can we do against this process. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It shifts the conversation away from that individual and getting pulled into that sort of negativity spiral, or as John was talking about, engaging with an idiot who will beat you, with experience, drag you down to their level and beat you with experience, right? Instead of doing that, it takes the conversation away from them, it takes power away from them, and puts power in the hands of people who want to do something different and better in the world, right? And that was the sort of purpose of doing it without naming him, without sort of making it something that everybody could go look up, without calling more attention to what he's doing, because that's all he's doing. He's just trying to get attention, right? He's like it's like a little kid throwing a temper tantrum. Right? Like that's
Wouldn't an example be like, if you don't show up to Creative Con and sign up to see Dominick and Tom from Not the Smartest Guys right now, you are a complete loser. You are losing out on the biggest amount of money and creative inputs that you can learn from two of the biggest powerful influencers on Clubhouse today. That's a provocateur statement.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, and that is, and I would never condone that statement.
Let's see, if I'm saying it, I'm the one that's like, I'm talking about you guys. my interest is in you. So am I the bad guy, or the people that I'm promoting is the bad guy? Oh, he's an ambassador of what? Wait, they're promoting this?
I mean,
No, not necessarily.
yeah,
you know?
but Jason, but he's promoting himself and his own business, right? So it's if I said that about myself, right? Like then you would be 100% right to call me an asshole, right? And that's the point. So Brian just posted thanks for bringing it up, Jason. Brian posted he's looking to buy tickets. So yeah, Brian, if you're on Clubhouse, if you click on the link in the well, you're on Clubhouse, obviously. Duh. Click on the link that Dom shared. Man, sometimes I get ahead of myself. Obviously, on Clubhouse, I'm reading your comment on Clubhouse like a knucklehead. This is why we call it not the smartest guys in the room, guys. Because I am full on dumb sometimes. So anyway, click that link and tickets are on sale now. So
and you're a loser if you don't come. You're a loser if you don't come to meet Tom and Dom. I'm just saying it from 72. I get paid. I don't get paid from this, but you're a loser if you don't come. I'm just gonna say that.
My wallet is opening up now.
I will tell you this. Dom and Julie are really the two sort of spearheading behind this. I'm obviously involved and partnering with them on the project, but it's happening because of the two of them. And I have to tell you this is we are going to work incredibly hard, all of us involved, to ensure that you guys walk away with, 2, 3, 4, like a multiple in value of what you spent on the ticket and coming to the event, right? We are going to do our damnedest to make sure that we over deliver for all of you. So that's our goal. That's what we're trying to do. And yeah, we'd love to see you guys there. That's how I would put it. And with that, Dom, go ahead. Why don't you take over steering the ship? Because I
got nothing, man. I got nothing. So
a whirlpool here.
No, you're good job. Good job. All so sometimes people ask me what I do. I'm a publisher of books, and I was just having a conversation. I was texting back and forth with a client, and I hate texting because sometimes things get misconstrued or you feel like there's tone and stuff like that. So I am one of these people that try to pick up the phone ASAP. And sometimes people are like, I thought we were texting. Why are you calling? No. But I did have a client the other day that I called him for the same reason. We were texting at night, and I said, I thought he took offense to something. And so I called him up. I'm like, hey, man, just wanted to talk about this. He's like, Dominick, of the list of things I worry about, he said, you are not even on the list. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. So that was a good thing. But okay,
I feel like, Dom, I think your tendency to want to pick up the phone and call, because you do it to me too, right? See? But here's what I think it is I think it's your like you're sort of coming up in sales, right? In the early 2000s, right? In the late 90s, early 2000s, right? In that, like in working in that environment in sales, where it was very much like you pick up the phone, like that's how you conduct those kinds of that kind of business. And that you always, it's like the order of priority in how you communicate is like face to face, on the phone, and then via written word, via email, right? It was always in that kind of order of priority, because it's much harder to say, and it's a classic sales technique, right? Because it's harder to say no to someone's face than it is to say no to an email, right? It's much harder. So, but I think it's just you got in that habit and you like that style of communicating. It's what you're used to and what you're comfortable with, and so that's why you default that way. But but you do it to me like I'll call in 5 or whatever, and we'll hop on the phone real fast. And I like, I'm not saying that as a complaint, but I just thought it just popped into my head. I thought it was interesting, but I think it goes to your background in sales probably.
That's fair, man. And I love the same thing with a Zoom, man. I love a Zoom because I want to be face to face, and I'm in a non-confrontational. I believe in never mistake kindness for weakness. Like let's be direct as can be. Julie, am I like Jason's direct? Jason's direct off the charts, man. That's what I like about him. But Julie, don't you think some days I'm just like, this has to be like this. I'm going to grab my computer and throw it off a wall. This, and she's probably thinking, what, is he on something? And I may be, but
You're enthusiastic.
yes. Okay. Yeah. I try,
Well,
but
you are, but to Tom's point too, like the point, there's something about having that voice-to-voice conversation where you connect with people as opposed to just being another post, another email. And yeah, what do they say about cars? If you get someone to do a test drive, you're like 90% assured of a sale. But it is all about connection. Going back to that. Thanks, guys.
hey, I got to ask, has anybody sold cars in this room?
Yes,
Jason.
I used to sell cars.
Okay, so
Mhm.
and I don't want to be disrespectful or anything because I love sales, but in having been in pharmaceuticals and yellow page sales and insurance sales,
So a drug dealer, right?
next, okay. So I always thought like these guys in car salesmen, like I used to have to like walk into people's doors and like knock on them or cold call. Like when they come on a car lot, they already want the car. They already saw something they liked. Isn't it easy? Don't you just have to not blow the sale?
Yeah, there's sales tactics you have to be trained on, like how to read not just the body language, but read the actual language the client or the customer is really starting with. Most of the time when people walk on a lot, look, I was looking at this car online, or they're looking at an ad. Back then it was ads, it wasn't really online. Um, they would say, I want to spend, I know I've got a budget. They'll make up and say, oh, I used to sell cars too. They'll try to break you down. And it's just like, okay, that's nice. Great. And it's just like, if you know the game, then you should be talking to somebody already on the phone before you even walk on the slot. But we know, like the salespeople on the floor, they're usually out in the lot. If it's nice weather, they're out in the lot. They're like circling like sharks, waiting for you to come. And so they're like, it's kind of like you're receiving people, like let them come in and get into the trap and let me get you into the car, and then I will mystify you with the fascia and the vanity of the car, not the actual performance of the car. I will talk about the performance afterwards, but it's really curiosity of your interest that I'm waiting for you just to unveil more and more and more. To now I use that on you. I would use that on your intentions and get you into a deal that's going to favor me and my quota. And then the old tactics were also the biggest tactic they use on the lot is getting you to wait. Once you go into the office and let me talk to my finance guy, within literally 2 minutes or 1 minute, they can get a full credit breakdown, how much you actually can bring in. That's why they fill out that form. And then they start working you negotiating down. You're down, my up. So, I mean, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, there's more than I thought to it. All right, not the smartest guys in the room. We're going to Heather. Heather, what do you think about having too much on your plate? Weigh in on anything that we've talked about. I know you do a lot. Is there ever a point where you're like, I need to do more for my business, or where you're like, this is too much. I'm wasting my time. I can't do one more thing. It's counterproductive. Cost benefit analysis. Go on. What do you got?
Oh, so many things have been said in this room. And you guys, I'm not one to jump in. I'm not very good at the whole just jumping in between breaths. It's just so very anxiety inducing, but I'm always here listening and kind of making mental notes in my brain. I mean, I just maybe want to touch on, because there's so much going on in this conversation and in the world right now, that maybe like crisis management in regards to social media. So yes, there's trolls and there's people who may have a inflammatory viewpoint and, doing it for the likes and, the rage follows and the rage comments, you know what I mean? Like just that very in your face inflammatory, trying to get that vibe, that negative vibe, right? But there is a specific way of crisis management in regards to social media. So I was specifically trained in this when I went to University of Delaware for my advanced social media course. And basically, like right now, especially what's happening around the world in regards to just what happened with, over in the Middle East and I'm not getting into it. But, just if you feel as though a social media post can wait, it can wait. People don't have to be posting about, hey, come get your free pizza right now. You know what I mean? Like there's times to post and there's times not to post, and there's times to comment on that inflammatory post, and there's times in which you don't, right? I have a very strong opinion. That opinion has gotten me into trouble. Not where like, oh my God, I've said something awful and then like people have to like drop my business. More of like, I've shared an opinion and then I was stalked and harassed and my business under attack by 2 different individuals who didn't even live in my state, right? So and they knew me personally, but they just didn't live in my state, and they were behind anonymous accounts, and and so right now, with how social media is, you have to be careful, because one wrong comment, one wrong connection can leave you screwed, from your business going bye-bye to you being stalked and harassed and even you being killed. It happened here on Clubhouse. There was, I believe, there was a woman who befriended somebody on this app, and he literally started stalking her and showed up at her house, and she is now deceased, and RIP, very sad. But you really have to be careful, especially on the internet. You do not know who is on the other side of that screen. So make sure you're doing your due diligence when you start working with people. Protect yourself. You are allowed to stay private, and that's why I don't really post a lot about myself. I do post about my business, but my business has always and probably will forever be referral based, because I have the longevity, experience, and referrals and testimonials to back up what I do. So I don't need to be out here being like, oh, here are the 5 top tips for social media management. Like, I don't need to do that. And in regards to that, sometimes when you do that and you're constantly giving free information, you just attract people who want free, and you're never going to get a client if all you're attracting is free. But yeah, just the crisis management, I feel as though is this overall encompassing conversation here of, you have to be careful on the internet. And I will say one thing: if you do have kids and they do have social media, please have them be very wary and vigilant of their social media this weekend. Hamas has put out a warning that they will be releasing videos of what is happening. And we do not want our kids subjected to that. So please just be wary of social media. My kids are not allowed on social media due to the harmful effects. And but you can't control it everywhere. But you do need to educate your kids as well. So just
Heather, isn't against the network's policy to promote or show violent videos to anyone under the age of 18?
Well, here's the thing. There are moderators on these apps, right? And a lot of the times the moderators can't get to everything. And so it will be leaked out on YouTube. And if it's done in mass, meaning like there's like just a barrage of video after video after video after video, then it could create this overwhelm, and the moderators won't be able to get to it in time, and then it'll be pushed out. Furthermore, people repost it. So they'll like screenshot a video, and then it takes a life of its own, where it could be shared across multiple platforms, from Instagram to Facebook to WhatsApp to, just at Snapchat to TikTok to anything. So just everybody be very vigilant this weekend. If you see anything, report it, because I know the moderators are going to be, for all platforms, are going to be overwhelmed this weekend. So thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip. Obviously, this is not a place where we're going to dive into sort of details about any of that stuff. But I think that's a very, very good tip, Heather. Absolutely. If your kids are on social media, make sure you monitor what they're seeing, and maybe get it off their phones for a period of time coming up, because if you want to disseminate something via social media, you can. right? It's not that hard to get around the moderators, at least in the short term. And once something is on the internet, like what's the saying, right? The internet is forever. So once it's out there, and it can be reshared and reposted from multiple different places. So yeah, I think that's a good tip, Heather, for sure, for anybody here who has kids that are on social media. Probably a good idea to get it off their phones this weekend for sure. Yeah, I think Heather, to your point before, I think it's about it's about picking battles and engaging where it makes sense and not engaging where it doesn't make sense, and that's exactly why we were talking about why I chose to bring up this conversation in this particular way. I wanted to comment on the first thing that Dom actually asked you, though, because this was again something that I was kind of I think was part of why Dom was saying I was shot out of the cannon this morning. Was because I told him that I was at a networking event last night, and as you do, I was catching up with people that I knew or had talked to before, and they were asking me what's going on, what are you doing, what are you up to, and I started listing all the things that I'm doing or working on or have in the works or I'm thinking about getting involved with, and the list kind of just went on and on and on, and I hadn't really realized exactly how many balls I'm trying to juggle right now. And so I was thinking about it last night, and then again this morning on my run, which is when I do most of my best thinking, was, is it too much? Am I trying to do too much? Or is it better to do too much and drop a couple of balls, but keep most of them in the air, than to do what seems like a reasonable amount and kind of never progress? And like my experience, from my personal life, from training for Ironman races, is you're capable of more than you give yourself credit for, right? And if you only stay in your comfort zone and stay in that safe zone where you can handle it, you're never going to get faster, right? You're never going to get better. You're never going to get fitter. And I think it's true I think that is true kind of in business too, right? Like if you don't push yourself to do more, to do new, to do different, then you're never going to change and improve. And so I kind of think it's a good idea that I'm a lunatic. I kind of think it's a good thing that I'm out of my mind and doing far too many things at once. But I was just curious, like for anybody else here, have you ever had that realization, and how did you deal with it?
Well, Tom, I wanted to say, you're allowed to have all those plates spinning in the air, right? Like I have a bazillion plates in the air right now, from, fixing my health, from, changing my eating habits, to my kyphotic neck. I have to go to the chiropractor 3 times a week. I'm writing a webinar for the Wilmington University. I am going to be running social media for a AI thing. Like there's so many things, plates spinning, but the thing is, not everybody needs to know about all the plates. So, I may say at that networking event, right? And I just had one too. And I also was like, well, I'm doing this. And I was like, wait, let me step back here and let me focus on like, okay, what are the big things that I'm working on? And what, if I tell these people, will it benefit me so I don't look like a psychopath, instead of like looking like a crazy person with all of those plates in the air and them looking at me like, you look really busy. Maybe I shouldn't talk to you. So just, you're allowed to move in silence. I feel like people have that problem. You do not have to tell me all the things all the time on social media, every little simple thing every single thing you're doing. You don't have to. You can tell me a few things, but you can keep those plates spinning in the background that nobody knows about. And then once that's done, you can like drop it and be like, hey, guess what I did? Boom. And everybody's like, oh my God, I didn't even know you were doing that. That's amazing. And then you just like create this buzz because you didn't grow you didn't like grow and build in public. You built behind the scenes, and then you kind of dropped it on them. You did a mic drop on them. So that's how I approach it, I guess. So.
Right on, Heather. Thank you. Go on, Johnny, and then we're going to go to Beth and Jimmy. Go on, Johnny.
Well, so Dom, you know that I am one of those guys. I have a million plates spinning, but I typically only show the plates in specific places. So I'm going to a podcasting network meetup tonight. I'm not going to tell them, I'm not going to talk about my live shows or my books or the comic book that I'm working on. I'm not going to talk about ghost touring. I'm going to talk about only my career as a podcaster. That's it. And so in a writer's convention, I'm going to be talking about my books, and that's it. So I'm very, very focused on what I share, where, and because the natural inclination of people when they say, "Oh, you're a champion magician and you've performed on Broadway and you also have a best-selling book and you top-rated podcasts, and how can you do any of that really well?" Well, I mean, it's easy when you know how to juggle, but there's this perception that you're doing too many things to be good at any one thing. So I'm very cognizant of that perception when I'm in in an environment. Does that make sense?
Johnny, absolutely, man. And now, although The Rock can post about his tequila, he can post about his acting, he can post about his book, he can post about his nonprofit. Why does he get away with it? But Tom, you had a question you were going to answer, so go on.
Yeah. So Brian asked in the chat, what was the result of the realization? Like, what are the next steps? Right. And I think the next steps are, so I want to be clear about something. All the things I have going on are all centered around sort of my core business. And combining my core business with some of my core interests, right, in terms of triathlon specifically. So it is all related. It all has to do with it's not like I'm trying to do 18 very different things. They're all definitely related to each other and kind of centered around my core business and the mission of my business. So they are related, there is some focus. It's not that I'm completely just scatterbrained doing 86 different things. Although I do that sometimes. Raise your hand if you've ever started cleaning something and then halfway through got distracted and went and did something else and then went back and realized you had only cleaned half of what you had started cleaning. I think we've all been there, right? So to that, to answer Brian's question, my next step is to try to be better about coordinating and prioritizing and sort of diligently scheduling work on each of these projects. I think that's, for me, the key to sort of keeping all of this stuff moving forward. And there may come a time where I realize that one of these projects is not going to come to fruition. And so it's time to let it go, right? That happens. And I'm okay with that, right? That's part of trying new things, right? You don't always succeed at everything you do. But for me, I think the next step is to be honest with myself about the time I have available, my ability to focus my attention on things, and prioritizing the projects that I want to work on or that I have in progress already, and really allocating time to doing those things on my schedule and then doing my best to adhere to that schedule. That's kind of how I see myself dealing with it. I don't know that that's great advice for anybody else necessarily, but I think that'll help me get more done than I would than I would otherwise. I think that's kind of the most productive path for me. But I got some big ideas going on. I'm trying to launch a studio, a kitchen studio space with a nonprofit here in the Hudson Valley. We're trying to find some funding for that right now. I've got my regular business going on. I've got my book coming out. I'm part of the Creative Con because Dom and Julie were kind enough to invite me in to work with them on that project. And then I've hatched this harebrained scheme to also produce and create a content series in conjunction with training for my next Ironman next year, which I am tentatively calling To the Nines, because the overall goal is going to be to finish in the 9-hour block of that triathlon. So, whether or not I'll be able to get the funding together to make that a reality, I don't know. Either way, I definitely want to vlog it. And honestly, without the funding, I don't know if I'll be able to devote the time to getting there, but I'll give it my best. I'll give it a college try. We'll see what I can do. But yeah, I mean, so that's what I have going on, but I think it's manageable. I don't think it's too much. But yeah. Hope that answers the question. And Carrie, Carrie, what do you got?
Go on.
Okay. What I want to say is, here's the thing: give a busy person a task. Like, look at a busy mom, or even a single mom, or a parent. You do it because you love your kid, and you can do incredible things. And I just think when people say you're doing too much or you can't do all those things, well, maybe they're not as driven. And I'm a full-time photographer, but I'm not going to give up on helping people find love and being in the dating space. I love that. I can love being a podcaster and love being a writer and love being a photographer. And that's because I was born that way. A long time ago, I remember I was trying to navigate out of my relationship, and I was doing really well in photography, and I was winning these. One said to me, maybe you can have it all. Maybe you can't be a successful photographer and have a good relationship. Now, why would someone say that? Like, people say, and that stayed with me 20 years later. And I think you can have it all. And I think a lot of people are around throwing around words that hold you back. And it's not helpful. So I think just keep being you. And I think you can totally do it if you're passionate enough.
Carrie, thank you for the encouragement. We receive it. All right, hold on, Johnny. Let's go to Beth and Jimmy, and then we're going to keep this train rolling. Beth, weigh in. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dom, I've just been sitting here. I'm like, I've been listening to everything you guys were saying, and I have to agree with you as far as, yes, text messages can go so sideways real quick.
Good, Beth. I like agreeing with me. Continue.
Yes, I know that because my first business partner in real estate, we had a company, and man, oh man, he would send text messages, and I'm like, dude, just call me because you're really pissing me off right now. And I just felt that energy coming through. So, yes, I agree that it's better just to pick up the phone because you can hear the tone of what's going on. And I do love Zoom because then you can actually pick up on their mannerisms. And that works for me all day long. Yeah. And then Jason was talking about car sales. The funny thing about that last year, my friend owns a Lexus lot here, and he asked me to come in and do a sales training because we go to the melting pot once a week, and half his staff comes in. He's like, can you come in and train my staff and tell them the story of what happened when you went out to buy over $100,000 worth of cars? And all the guys were like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what we do. We never go straight to the wife. We stand there and talk to the guy like he's the one that knows anything, or he's the one that's going to be writing the check. And the guys were just like, nobody's ever told us that before. We didn't learn that when we got hired. And my friend's like, yeah, that's why, I wanted Beth to come in and talk to you guys, because when she goes out, she is the decision maker. She's going to make the decision. And more than likely, she knows more about the battery than her husband does. So it helped out their sales. I don't know how Jason did it back in the day, but I still continuously watch it. But now I'm going out shopping for cars with my son, right? And they'd look at me like, let's go to the mom. Let's see where the money is. But yeah, and Heather, I agree. You can have a ton of things going on, but it's time blocking. And Carrie, that's where I think you were going with it. Just time blocking out your day and getting everything put in. And you don't have to do 1,000 things in one day. You can give yourself a list of 3 and say, this is what I'm getting done today. I got to work on this project. I got to call back this client. And then I still have to make dinner for the kids. Don't let me forget that. And then you check mark them off. But time blocking is my biggest lifesaver for me. I don't know if y'all do it or not, but it works for me.
Beth, thank you. And you guys taught me about time blocking in here. I used to not take lunches because I was like, well, people are calling during lunch. And Johnny was like, Dominick, why don't you just time block lunch? And Dom time block lunch. And I was like, that's a good idea. And then even with like, I use Calendly like crazy now. And then I used to have it open all day long. And then I started time blocking my Calendly. Like, okay, I take meetings from this time to this time. This day I'm done at, like on Friday, I'm done at 9:00, no more calls or something like that, because it's like, then it goes into real creativity and filming and stuff like that. So I try not to book that at all, but every day time blocking helps. Hey, we're going to go, Johnny had a question, then we're going to go to my man, Jimmy, and our friend, Kevin. So Johnny, you had a great question in the comments there, and I'd love to go down that path. So go on, my friend.
Yeah, so I posted this in the chat. So we're talking about taking on projects and clients and, you know, running businesses and whatnot. But what never gets talked about in any of these conversations, it's always about, you know, what you can do, what your ambition is. But what about the spouse? What about your spouse, your family? What do you do when your spouse is not on board with your aspirations, with your ambition, with your goals?
Divorce.
You know,
Well, go on, Johnny. Continue. And I mean, Heather, I have a friend right now, a creative friend, that that was a lot of weight on his spouse, and sometimes it left him without unhappy because he had a day job, and the time he couldn't be creative, it probably weighed on him and like created a divide. So, Johnny, continue there.
well, and that's my point exactly. I mean, you know, I am a very creative person. I'm involved with a lot of different projects, you know, and sometimes my wife says, "No, you're not going to do that." And here's why. So that's never part of these conversations. That's never part of these, you know, coaching seminars, is managing expectations of the people who should be most important in your life. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Johnny, I love the conversation, and this is something you could start a room, you could write a book, you could have a whole, I mean, it's something I personally battle and deal with daily, you know, because you like involved in so much. Well, it's not my place to make my wife or my family be involved in all these things that aren't necessarily their path. So, or strain them financially in any way if I'm creating and risking and things. I guess I'm part of a relationship is balance, and maybe my wife and family hold me in check a little bit so that I don't. Right, I would probably be driving cross country and living in a hostel in LA right now, chasing dreams and making $2 a day. If like that's maybe not the best for everybody. So I think there is a balance that we need, that we almost lean on them for. So anybody else, Tom, you want to weigh in?
Well, let me just say, I was just joking.
I want to lean in.
Hold on. Okay, we'll go Heather, Tom, Jason. Then we got to go Jimmy and Kevin. Go on.
So I was just joking about the divorce thing, and I've seen both sides because I am divorced. My first husband was not very supportive of my business, would tell me, go get a full-time job. It's not going to go anywhere. And, yeah, I was making money, but it wasn't good enough. It was never good enough. But now my current husband, who is amazing, he supports me 120%. Everything that I do, he's like, yes, let's do it. But then he's like, all right, look, Heather, like you're doing this, 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 and this. Like, clear those off of your to-do list first. Then let's talk about that. Put a pin in that for a second, and let's focus on those things first, because, you know, he's like, I don't want to have you get overwhelmed. And so it's really about like the relationship that you have. It's all about communication. If that spouse is saying that your business sucks and you're never going to make it, well, you might want to change the spouse. But if you have a supportive spouse who's like, look, like, I support everything you do, but I think that maybe we should talk about this and communicate about it, then that's the route that you want to go. Communication is key in business and in relationships.
As a professional communicator, Heather, I couldn't agree more. I think communication is absolutely key. I'm very fortunate. My wife is incredibly supportive of me. She is, you know, I don't know that she's my biggest fan. That's probably not an apt description, but she 100% supports me and believes in me. And believes in my ability to do things that I sometimes don't believe in myself. But all of that said, she absolutely does act as sort of a brake check for me sometimes, where, you know, I'll be talking about something new that I want to start or get involved in, and she'll just kind of look at me and kind of go, maybe let's pump the brakes a little bit on that one, and let's think a little bit further before we jump in. Because I'm very much the person who's like, you know, all right, let's check the straps once and then jump out of the plane. And she's like, nah, maybe we check the straps twice before we jump out and make sure that parachute's really securely attached to our backs. So she's a good person to have, you know, sitting next to me in those kinds of situations, because she does pump the brakes. She does make me double check the straps. And, you know, sometimes I find a loose strap that either means I need to fix it, or I'm not gonna jump. So she's good for that, but she's like way more supportive than I could ever hope for. And I think it goes to that thing, right? Like, surround yourself, you know, with people that believe in you, right? Don't surround yourself with people that hold you back or tear you down. You know, surround yourself with the people that build you up. And that's what she does for me. That's why we've, you know, been together for, it'll be 11 years in a few days. We've been together, only married for less than a year, but, you know, together for 11 years in a couple of days here. So, and still to this day have not had a big knockdown, drag out fight. And it's because we talk to each other all the time. So yeah, I think it's because of good communication. What do you think, Dom?
I think you're killing it, man. Let's go to Jason. Beth had a comment, and Jimmy. I'm just navigating right now. It's a good conversation. You're all flowing. Go on, Jason.
I'm really gonna try to make this as brief as possible. I mean, just because you don't have your support of your spouse or whoever you're with, or your family or friends, you know, you got to ask yourself. Well, the Stoics really preach: keep your goals to yourself, so you don't invite chaos or unwarranted curiosity. Like, if people don't see your vision, that's fine. They're not supposed to until it's in place. There's a curiosity, and then there's actual performance, like the doer versus the thinker. Sometimes you are both. You know, my spouse does not necessarily listen to all my stuff. She doesn't want to get involved, and that's fine. You know, I'm okay with that. You know, I have my vision, but if they're downplaying what I'm doing constantly, I look and I analyze, like, what is their interest? What is their experience? And if they have no experience, then the opinion is not warranted nor needed. So, and they're probably jealous of my prosperity, because there are a lot of people who just want to kind of throw you under the bus because they can. Or, you know, when spouses don't feel secure about themselves, you know, why not keep you in a safe bubble? But we know that prosperity is a growing curiosity. It cannot just stay in home base. You cannot just stay in your box and just play with that sand. You're going to want to get out, because you're going to get bored. So I really think that it's just like, keep your goals close to your heart and mention to the people that can get you there. That's the network. That's the beauty of it. Like, majority of the people on this stage, I either know you I've networked with you. If I've mentioned my goals, it's because you're going to work with me. You're either assisting me with information, or you've got a process, or your network is so extensive that you can get me to the right people, because no one makes anything great alone. No one is self-made. You're self-interest, but you're community built. That's my life quote. So that's where I stand. That's where I stop.
Thank you, Jason. I want to defend the spouses here. It's Johnny. Johnny got us talking about this and then left. The spouses love you.
His wife told him he had to get off Clubhouse.
Yeah, maybe.
Provocateur.
Oh man, sometimes the spouses love you the way you are. Your friends, your family, they love you the way you are. They are trying to keep you safe. They are trying to protect you. So it's not always that they don't believe in you or that they want you to not succeed to your fullest. They love you as you were. And so I think sometimes we need to, us creatives and doers and stuff like that, we need to have a little more.
Wait, I got a quick question about that then. Have you ever had it where your spouse didn't believe in you, but then stumbled onto your work and like, I didn't know you were that good? Have you ever had that happen? That's to everybody.
Yeah. How about this? Fuck yeah, that you're getting the pure F, because they don't know. So all of a sudden you see things, and it when you put in the work, like you said, you put in the work, you put in the time, you do things in private. Why should anybody just blindly believe, hey, you're gonna do, you put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the studies, and then good things happen. So then at that point, of course, they see things. Well, who knew something that you just talked about is Creative Con? Who knew something that you just talked about is actually on TV, or people are reading it or liking it? I thought you were just goofing around. No, man, of course. So that's part of the game. And don't ever, in authors, I always tell my authors, like, if you think family and friends, they are not family and friends. One, do they even read? Like, so people are like, oh, my family and friends didn't buy my book. No shit. Do they even read? So number one, you're like, well, you're asking them to do something they don't do. And then do they read your kind of book? And nothing is important to them as it is important to you. Like friends, family. Dale Carnegie, in one of his books, and it was How to Stop Worrying. He's like, people care more about their own headache than if you die. And Tom, you've used the Eleanor Roosevelt quote. Is that right? If you knew how little people think about you. What's that quote?
Now I'm drawing a blank, of course, because you asked me.
Okay, but it's basically, to paraphrase,
it's basically you'd be surprised how little other people think about you.
Yeah, if you knew how little people think about you, you'd quit worrying about something like that. Okay, now we're going on to what.
I wanted to say one other thing.
Sorry, Tom. Yeah.
No worries. I think there's a big difference between like a spouse being supportive of what you're doing and a spouse being involved in what you're doing, right? And like, I want to be clear, my wife has no interest in like ever being on camera, being on a live stream, like doing any of the sort of media related things I do. Her nightmare is having to get up on stage and speak in front of people. Like she gets sweaty palms just thinking about having to do something like that. She is not involved, right, in the vast majority of those things. But she is very supportive of the stuff that I do and the things that I'm involved with because she believes in me. So this is a two-way street. We both have admiration for each other. And I think that's the right word to use. We admire each other. So I think that's like an important distinction I want to make is I don't think your spouse needs to be involved in everything you do, right? Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But I do think your spouse, like you should look for a spouse. And I think it's important for a spouse to be supportive of their partner, right? Regardless of whether or not their partner is pursuing things that specifically interest them. So yeah, big difference between support and involvement, I think. But I just wanted to draw that comparison. And then now we're going to Beth, right?
Yeah, I wanted to say, well said, Tom. And I feel that, but it reminds me of, I used to have a restaurant and I lost $500,000. And I remember sometimes like on Friday nights or something, my wife would be in the kitchen, like working one of the three double basket fryers. And then I would like call out a check. Hey, we need, six orders of fries, drop 20 pieces of fish. And boy, did that piss her off when she was actually there and I'm yelling things. So yeah, there's got to be a clear divide. All right, Beth, and then my turkey friend, Jimmy. What do you got, Beth?
Oh God, you guys are cracking me up. Um, yeah, I think there is a level of support and then it can go to a level of resentment. And I've heard several of my friends say, I run my family like a business. No, don't do that because that means work. When you get off work, you should go home and have fun. Like, make dinner and have fun. Don't say that your family is a business. That's not good. That's probably pissing your wife off. And I know Jason makes fun of me that I go out on the weekends with all my colleagues and their wives go shopping and whatever. And I sit there and I watch
Don't
football.
invite personal stuff. Let's just stick to the point. Let's do that.
But I think it's good to where you were saying, Tom, about the circle that you're with. I like to have smarter people around me because I learn something every single time. Like, I learned stuff last night about Vietnam I didn't know because I sat and listened to somebody that is way smarter than me. And I just, yeah, that was my point. But yeah, I think it's easy with spouses, guys. Just time block it in. Don't let them know that you're time blocking that, like, dinner date. Just time block it in and look at your schedule and say, nope, tonight's for the spouse.
Beth, good points. Thank you. We appreciate you. Okay, now we talk about inner circles and things like that. And so you are going to, if he goes on mic here, this is my friend, Jim Ajay. He's a friend that pushes me forward in a lot of things. So he's in sales by day, but if we're filming something or if we're delivering turkeys, I want Jimmy involved because he usually pushes me to the next level or challenges me. So I got asked the question one day, who's on your board of directors? It was like an interview and they asked me, who's on your board of directors? And they were saying like I'd have Lincoln, I'd have Grant or something. And I was like, I'd have my friend Jim Ajay. And they had no idea what I was talking about. So Jimmy, go on, man. You better have something of value to add here. Because look, he's all right. There you go.
You hear me?
Yeah, you hear you good. Go.
All right. So everything's been good, and part of the reason why I like this room is you guys literally jump around to 80 subjects, and 75 of them are normally pretty good. So I like it. But what I was gonna say is it's important to have, and you touched on this, Dom. It's important to have a supportive spouse and people like that. But how many of your friends actually call you to find out what you're up to? Because that's something Dom and I do a lot. I'll call and say, Dom, what are you working on these days? And he'll start talking to me and ask me what I'm up to, who you selling to, how are things going? And you got to have supportive people like that in your life as well, aside from people at work. Your friends are probably more important than your colleagues, really. Thoughts now?
I think that circle's got to be tight. I love to surround people. What is it? You are Jim Rohn. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I have that belief that just Jim's the kind of guy that we had a sick friend. He didn't tell anybody. And like Jason said about your goals, we had a sick friend and Jimmy was leaving work and driving him to his appointments as he was dying of cancer. And so these are the kind of people that I choose to spend my time with. So 100% agree. Tom, what say you on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Jim. I think it's really important to have, support in various parts of your life. And I think it's important particularly with friends, because if anybody's going to call you on something, if anybody's going to hold you to task and help create accountability for you, right? It's your friend who's going to call bullshit on you. Right. Like, I know I've been that person for friends of mine, and I've had other friends turn to me and go, you're an idiot. No. And here's why, or stop being a jackass, or whatever the case may be. But like, they can pull you up and hold you to task, and create accountability in a way that, coworkers and spouses really can't. So I agree. I think those are really, really important relationships to foster.
Hey, Dom, I have one other point too.
No, go on, man. Bring it on.
Okay. You guys were talking about car sales and how you said you think it would be so easy. I was told
Is that what I said? Is that what I said? Because I feel bad.
Well,
now.
you said
Go.
they're walking on the lot to buy.
Okay.
So,
Okay. See,
so
he's
they're
calling
on
me
bank
out. Go on. Go on.
They're in the sales mode to begin with. The issue with today's sale is 10, 15 years ago, they would walk on the lot and it was your job to inform them about the car, about the features, about everything about the car, why it's better than the next car. Today, the consumer is they research, they look stuff up online. They know more about the car and the car industry than probably the salesman most times. So they're a very informed consumer, and it makes it harder because you can't bullshit them. So I think it's probably harder than you think, and that's why I honestly would never want to do it. So I just wanted to make that point.
Fair point, man. You go on, Tom.
I was just going to say, I had an interesting conversation with somebody about car sales a couple of months ago that sort of stuck with me. And this conversation brought it back up in my mind. But it was interesting because he was talking about his experience going to buy his truck and the salesman that he worked with and how easygoing and like not just easygoing, but literally how no pressure the salesman was that he worked with. And how easy a process it was, and how pleasant a process it was, and how that sales guy is the leading salesperson by like more than double his closest competitor at that dealership. And he is known in the area like as the person to go to if you want to buy a car from that dealership, right? Like everybody tells their friends to go to him. And what this guy that I was talking to said he realized as they were going through the process was that this salesman wasn't trying to sell him a car. What he was doing was he was facilitating the sale, right? Because he said, and this is his words, the way he described it was, he realized that all he had to do was not get in the way. Because I walked onto the lot wanting to buy a car, right? Like nobody just walks into a car dealership window shopping, right? Like you go to a car dealership because you're strongly considering and or leaning towards buying a vehicle, right? So like this salesman, and this is the way this guy described it, was he realized all he had to do was get out of his own way and not screw up the sale by trying to sell me. Instead, all he should do is try to make it as pleasant an experience as possible. So everything he did was specifically designed to make me feel like it was the easiest car buying experience and most pleasant car buying experience I'd ever had. And he said, you know what? It was. And I would only ever buy a car from him again. And I would tell all of my friends to go buy a car from him if they're looking for a car that I don't forget what kind of cars that dealership sells. Like it was American. I don't know if it was like Ford or Chevy or GMC. I don't remember. I think it was GMC and Chevy, but either way, like the long story short, essentially that salesman realized that his job was not to close the sale. Like he didn't have to take you through the whole sales process. What he needed to do was make it a great experience. And that was his job. And that's why he was so good at it and so successful with it. And why he had so many sales was because all he focused on was making it a great experience for the people that came in to buy cars from him. So yeah, I mean, I think, look, I've never worked in sales, and I will tell you right now that I am not, I'm not a salesperson, but it seems to me from an outside perspective that maybe he's onto something, that it's not about being a car salesman in a modern context, right? In 2023 is maybe less about selling because like you said, that people know tons walking onto the lot. It's maybe less about selling and more about facilitating the process and making it a pleasant experience. It's more about creating experience than it is generating sales, right? Creating the experience makes the sales happen. So I don't know. That was just my thought from that. But yeah, go ahead, Dom.
Tom, I think that's a beautiful way to look at it in all of us in selling our message, sharing our message, our businesses. And what if we could create that experience that I think that's what it's all about. But okay, now it's that time of day, Tom. We're moving on. It's 11:15. We usually go till about 11. Not the smartest guys in the room. I unplugged my microphone if I sound different because this show and tell has sound to it. So this is from my dad. I took it off him one day. He has all these like fight posters and stuff at his house. And when I was young, we didn't like, as much as I love sports and you see them behind me, we really only watched, like as a family, boxing at home. Like boxing was what it was about, where my dad, like even Jimmy would come over back in the day and watch Mike Tyson and stuff like that. And so like on a Friday night, if I got in a fight at the mall or something, I probably got just as much admiration from my dad. They're like, not like a little attaboy that I did if I got into a basketball game or something like that. So fighting's always been a big deal. So this is a Muhammad Ali. I took off his something at his house. But look, check this out. Let's see if I can get it to work. It's who's the greatest? Okay, so anyway. Okay, I'm shutting it off. Anyway, all kinds of things. So boxing's always been part of my family's life. And here it is, little Muhammad Ali. That's all I got for you today with this show and tell, Tom. And I'm out. I'm done talking.
I like it. I like it. I'm the greatest. I'm the king of the world. Classic Muhammad Ali quotes, right? I bet you if you had let it keep playing, it would have played the like float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I bet you that's on there too.
I would guess it probably is, but I'm not.
It would, right? Like, I mean, it would have to be. It would have to be.
Yeah. So we got our fight posters and things like that, and these mean something to me. Not that they were promoting violence and things like that. It was just he had grown up watching fights and with his brothers around the radios and things. So that was that. Tom, you want to give us a wrap up? We went long today, so let's do it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I just wanted to go back. I'm going to keep it brief. I wanted to go back. We were talking about that quote from Eleanor Roosevelt that I had mentioned in here before that you brought up. And then, of course, I couldn't remember, despite myself. Love it when I bring up a quote. And I think we talked about it for like an hour and then I couldn't even remember it. So just goes to show how many things I have going on at one time that sometimes I can't even remember things that I talk about at length. But the quote goes like this. I looked it up. You wouldn't worry what other people think of you if you knew how seldom they do. That's the quote, right? That's the quote attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt. And what I take out of that is, I think something that Jason was talking about keeping your goals close. I agree with that to some extent in that that there's a right time and a wrong time. In a lot of cases for when you share something publicly. But I use, people in my circle as sounding boards and as sort of a focus group, if you will, and trusted sources of feedback for the projects that I take on, especially when it comes to the harebrained schemes that I dream up all by myself rather than clients coming to me with their projects. Right. So, I do care about what some people think, but I don't care about what everybody thinks. And I think that's an important distinction to make. I care about what a few people think. Right. But I don't care what everyone thinks. And I think that's probably a good balance to find in life, in building business, in creating community, and in moving forward, right? I think we should all care a little bit about what a few people think, those people closest to us, those people that are important in our lives, and those people that are our biggest system of support. But but we shouldn't care what everybody thinks, right? If I were to go out in public and talk about some of the things that I've got in the works and some of the ideas that I have, I guarantee, I promise there would be detractors. But I don't care what they think, right? And often they're only thinking because I'm providing or being a provocateur and trying to get them to think about me. So at the end of the day, I care about what a few people think, but I don't care about what everybody thinks. And also, you just have to remember there's no way to make everybody happy. You're always going to have detractors. You're always going to have people that are going to second guess the decisions that you make and the way you carry yourself and the way you do things. But if you're staying true to your mission and your goals, then that's really what matters. So I'll leave everybody with that. Have a great week. Don't forget to float like a butterfly, sting like a bee in everything that you do. And for Dom, I'm Tom. This is Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. We will see you next Wednesday morning at 9:30 a.m., streaming all across the internet. Until then, everybody have a great week. Love you guys. See you soon.